When you start to sell, there's not a lot of information available. It's not very liquid. There's not a stock exchange for little businesses. Information is hard to get, and information is asymmetric. That is, particularly at the first, the buyer almost knows nothing about the seller, and of course the seller doesn't know a lot about the buyer. And so our first job to reduce the risk to the buyer is give them lots of information, because they're looking at a lot of unknowns. Matter of fact, their universe consists of known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. And the person who can say it best is Donald Rumsfeld, former Secretary of Defense.
There are known knowns. There are things we know that we know. There are known unknowns. That is to say, there are things that we now know we don't know. But there are also unknown unknowns. There are things we do not know we don't know.
This platform is not a platform for propaganda. This is a platform for truth.
If you remember, Jon Stewart and all the comedians had a field day with Donald Rumsfeld. Why he was trying to explain to the press corps tactical and strategic decision making, but in fact he was right. That's what we face. So the first thing we're going to do is have the buyers take their universe of unknowns and make it smaller. And the way we do this is with all the things, we're going to tell them things that they didn't even imagine they needed to know. By the way, this is a much better photo of Donald Rumsfeld. He named his memoir Known and Unknown, so playing off that same Jon Stewart gag. So it's corporate governance documents, legal minutes and bylaws, annual registration, a nice history of finances, get all your leases, get the titles right. I was working with a trucking company. Come to find out, they presented financial statements with the real estate on the operating books, on the operating company's books, but it was actually titled in another entity owned 100% by the owner, and nobody realized it because the attorney set this up 10 years ago when it was acquired. Lots of tax returns, the list of customers and suppliers. What you're doing is you're giving the buyer information he did not even know to ask. You have taken those unknown unknowns and moved them down to known unknowns. The second is he knows to ask some questions. So he's got some known unknowns. And these are the things that you want to provide a buyer who is interested. It's the key employees, the growth areas. Have you got more than one business, more than one product or service? What's the percent, and where do they come from? And have you had declines or growth in any one area? If you have government regulations, why and why not? These are questions they're going to ask. The fact that you have them available means that now he's moved those into the knowns. Because what we want to happen is that, and insurance, I just mentioned insurance, that's another, they always ask about insurance and risk coverage. And we got an insurance guy here, and I've got a great story about a risk assessment for a trucking company, and they decided to self-insure for catastrophic fatality accidents because they found out they only happen so rarely. Even though they're in the news a lot, they happen so rarely, they self-insured for that.